We're here to talk about high-performing teams and Agile. That's going to be our agenda, so I'm going to do a brief introduction, despite the introduction that was made already. We're going to a few definitions, have a glimpse in high performance, try to understand when Agile comes to play, and perhaps reach out to a conclusion. I'm Lucas Estevam. As it was said, I'm a full-time dad. I'm a kickboxing brown belt. I love martial arts. I'm a tennis player wannabe, so any tips are welcome if you play tennis. I'm a technical manager and principal UI engineer here at Avenue Code, where I've been working for the last almost 10 years. I'm currently acting as a dev lead at Apple. I'm originally from Belo Horizonte City in Brazil, and I moved to California about 3 years ago. That's my family right there. My wife, Juliana. Samuel with the red t-shirt is my oldest son. He's very smart. He loves stories, and he's very focused. Daniel with the green t-shirt is my youngest. He's 2.5 years or about that. He's very joyful, as you can see, and he's very affectionate as well. Now that you know a little bit about me, and before I go on, I just want to say how thankful I am for those two little boys. They are truly a blessing in my life, and they make me want to be better and to improve every day. So I want to kick off creating a baseline understanding, and for that, I want to check a few definitions of important keywords that we are going to use across this talk. The first word I want to describe is agile. Why not? And it's to be able to move quickly and easily. It's also related to a method of project management, used especially for software development, that is distinguished by the division of tasks into short phases of work and frequent reassessment and adaptation of plans. We are at the Agile Week. I'm sure you heard enough about what's Agile and all its traits, but I want to highlight these two words, these few words: quickly, easily, frequent reassessment, and adaptation of plans. Keep those words in mind if you can. What about high performance? It's to be able to operate to a high standard and at a high speed. It's also described as something used to describe something that could be a product or a person, a team that is faster, more powerful, etc., than something similar. So there are clear similarities between those two concepts right there. What about a team? That definition I found on the Wisdom of Teams, it's the aspirational definition of a team. It's that what we envision. Team is a small group of people with complementary skills who are committed to a common purpose, goals, and approach for which they hold themselves mutually accountable. And as I said, that's our aspirational definition of team. Highlighting those words right there: complementary skills, commitment, common purpose, and mutually accountable. Now that we have a baseline understanding of these principal concepts here, we can have a glimpse in the subject of high-performing teams. This image right there shows the Tuckman model. It's a very famous model. An American psychological researcher called Bruce Wayne Tuckman, yeah, he was called Bruce Wayne, came up with this model to explain common stages of team development until it reaches high performance. And obviously, it starts with forming, where the team has a clear lack of clarity about its purpose and the individual roles. It goes through storming, where usually conflict arise, people begin to establish their place in the team, and those conflicts may explain why there is a drop in the performance, as you can see in the image. Then the team goes to what he calls norming, where there is already a certain level of agreement or consensus and more clarity about the roles and which role each individual will play inside that team. Then it finally reaches the peak, which is performing, And it's where the team has a clear strategy already. It shares a vision. It operates autonomously. It delivers great results and all that without losing synergy, which is very important for high performing teams. It's ready to mention adjourning, which is happens when the team experiences termination or some sort of transition, like I know a new onboarding, or maybe the leader had to let someone go, anything like that. We want to reach the top of the line, right? We want to reach performing when our team is highly productive, performing at high standards and high velocity. For that to perform at high standards and high velocity, a team demands expertise. So let's talk a little bit about expertise. Expertise must pass three tests. It's not just about theory. It's not about a certificate or anything like that. Real expertise must pass three tests. Performance that is consistently superior to its peer. And I will highlight that it must be consistent, produce concrete results, and be replicated and measured in lab. Those are the three main points for us to understand if there is real expertise in a team. This quote is very famous. It's from William Thomson, a British mathematician, aka Lord Kelvin. And he says that if you cannot measure it, you cannot improve it. If you cannot measure it, you cannot improve it. Kelvin measure, yeah, he's that guy. That's very important because experts are not born. They are made. And the same goes for winning teams. There is like overwhelming evidence to prove it. We need to measure so we can improve. There's no such thing as there's nothing I can do. If you believe that your team does not have what it takes because it lacks talent, be assured that winning teams are not born. They are also made. As a team of university professors once wrote on the article, "The Making of an Expert, the journey to superior performance is neither for the faint of heart nor for the impatient." Improving takes time. Improving takes a lot of time sometimes. But remember the peak. Remember, we want to get to the peak. We are the elves who want to get to Valinor. And if you don't know, Lord of the Rings, think about it as the best conception of paradise as you can think. It takes time, but it's worthy. It's worthy. Who doesn't want to achieve great results? Who doesn't want to work with a great team, with great people, things to leave as a legacy or things to be proud of? If you know Reed Hastings, he's the Netflix co-founder, and he has a book called No Rules Roots, and it's a very famous book where he speaks about all the Netflix culture and tries to explain why Netflix was so successful. And among other things, he says, a fast and innovative workplace is made of highly talented people of diverse backgrounds who accomplish significant amounts of important work and collaborate effectively. But think about it. Collaboration is not a technical expertise, is it? We have been talking about how a high performing team is made of experts and how expertise must be proven by consistently higher results than its peers. But what calls my attention here is that collaboration is not a technical expertise. And I want to talk about that. What kind of expertise high-performing teams have? High-performing teams demand expertise. And that can only be proven by, as I said, performance that is consistently superior to its peers. It produces concrete results, and it can be measured. So what kind of expertise are we talking about? Patrick Lencioni wrote the famous Five Dysfunctionals of a Team, and he later launched a model to overcome those dysfunctions, or at least to propose a possible solution for those. So we focus on results instead of inattention to results. A high performing team will embrace accountability instead of avoiding accountability. A team will achieve commitment instead of lack of commitment, master conflict instead of fear, and try to build trust instead of avoid. We have accountability, we have commitment, we have conflict management, we have trust. Those are all behavioral patterns. This is not technical. 4 out of 5 qualities of high performing teams are directly related to people skills, soft skills. And if you take a look right there, if you're careful looking at this image, and if you notice that we have the number 4 twice, don't choose to look at the one thing wrong when I've made 4 right. High performing teams are made up of people with a mix of technical and people skills. It's a mixture of expertise. It's not only about having the best developer in your team or the most technical person. You must have people with people skills, with soft skills, in order to achieve a high performing peak, a high performing team. Mari Shapiro, a professor from Harvard University, says in her book about leading teams that research repeatedly shows that greater diversity on a team yields more innovation and higher quality work. Diversity of skills makes a difference on your journey to achieve high performance. We need people with different kinds of expertise, not only technical experts, but people experts, perhaps. We need different people with different kinds of expertise if we want to achieve the high performing peak, if you want to build a high performing team. Remember our definition of team from the beginning, our aspiration definition of team. Let's refresh our minds. A team is a small group of people with complementary skills. It's everything that we've been talking about, who are committed to a common purpose, goals, approach, for which they hold themselves mutually accountable. We can adapt this definition to come up with the ultimate definition of a high-performing team. Just to conclude this topic, we need people with expertise, soft skills, to guarantee synergy. So let's take a look at this definition. A high-performing team is a small group of experts with complementary skills, which means that experts not only technically, but also in the people area, who are committed to a common purpose, goals, and approach for which they hold themselves mutually accountable as any team, and consistently delivers significant amounts of important work without losing synergy. That's very important. Without breaking the team. That's going to be our definition of a high-performing team. And this is a very broad subject. There are many pieces we haven't touched here. We have only about 30 minutes to discuss this. And the journey to get to a high-performing team can be rough, but perhaps Agile can help us fill in those gaps and help us to get there. We haven't talked about metrics. We haven't talked about tools, process, frameworks, a list of desired behaviors when we are looking to build our team. There are many things that are here we need to consider in order to achieve the top, in order to create and to maintain a high-performing team. But as I said, too little time. There's a lot to talk about this subject. I just want to acknowledge that. And I want to raise this question. When does Agile comes to play when we are talking about high-performing teams, especially in this context of software development, obviously? So we are looking for this intersection, right? And here I'm bringing a broader meaning to Agile than the one that the dictionary provided, the one that I mentioned in the beginning. But I'm bringing this broader meaning without compromising our baseline understanding. So think about Agile as a framework, something to promote an environment of constant improvement. and response to change toward accomplishing a goal. While high performing teams, as we just saw, it's a group of those stunning professionals capable of accomplishing significant amounts of important work. We have just two things, just these two words, and to be able to move both quickly and easily, which was our basic agile meaning, a team performing at the high standard. We need a team performing at the highest standards. So, what can we put inside that intersection? The first thing I'm sure is that there is no agile without people. We can see that on the Agile Manifesto. We can see that in every single framework or methodology that is connected somehow to Agile. Name it, Kanban, Scrum, XP, Lean, whatever. So people would be the first thing I would put that inside that intersection. And I can think about other things like expertise or synergy or measure. We saw all that at some point in the context of Agile, in the context of high performing teams. And reading the Agile Manifesto principles, we can find a few interesting things. So, one of the principles says that continuous attention to technical excellence and good design enhances agility. That's expertise. Another one says that working software is the primary measure of progress. Here we have a reference for measure that can help our team to have something to look at. Another one says build projects around motivated individuals. Give them the environment and the support they need, and trust them to get the job done. This principle is talking about synergy. Those are things in common between agile and high performing teams. I want to highlight the last two, and if you think you can think about anything else, please feel free to share on the chat. If you can think about anything else, any other quality or any other subject that we could put inside that intersection, share with us in the chat. But I want to highlight the last two Agile Manifesto principles. One says that Agile process promotes sustainable development. So the sponsors, developers, and users, they all should be able to maintain a constant pace indefinitely. Another one says that at regular intervals, the team reflects on how to become more effective, how to perform better, then turns and adjusts its behavior accordingly. An agile environment can provide teams with a framework to guarantee consistency. Frequent reassessments, measure techniques to allow continuous improvement. It can provide to a team a set of tools it may use to achieve the performing peak we saw on Tuchman's model. Consistency, it's the key word for me when we're talking about high performing teams. There are inside an agile context. And to speak more about that, I want to tell a little story. It's about the South Pole expedition. So, in the age of exploration, two teams set off from two different countries to determine who is going to go and reach the South Pole first. So we have this British team which had an approach that was that they would go to the absolute max. So the furthest they could go in a day. Every day, 20, 30, even 50 miles if the conditions allow it. They were giving their best to the max. They thought that was the way to perform better and get there faster. That was the goal, get there first, right? But it turns out that they were so exhausted on the bad weather days that they made no progress at all. And they started feeling this psychological burden of not moving towards their goal. Meanwhile, the Norway team, they have a different approach. They had a rule, and the Norway team is the red one, by the way. On good weather days, they would go 15 miles, no more, no less. And that meant that on the bad weather days, they would also go 15 miles, no more, no less. So even when they were very close, or even when the weather was absolutely great, they would go 50 miles, no more, no less. They didn't make a big push. They kept their pace consistently. Surprisingly enough, they got there to the South Pole more than 30 days faster than the British team, who was, pushing, giving their max until they were exhausted. They not only got there first, but they also got there healthy and well enough for the journey back home. And that's very important because it was a much better result when comparing to the British team, because they died on the way back home. So the Norway team kept their consistency, and their performance was clearly better than the British team. I brought this story so we can reflect on how the consistency Agile provides can help teams perform better on the long term. This Agile circle we are so familiar with frequent reassessments, makes easier for teams to measure the quality of their deliver. So everything with constant reassessments can improve, and they can achieve the performing peak of Tuchman model. We reassess, we reevaluate, we take notes, we see what we can do better, and we improve. We measure so we can improve. So what's the conclusion that we reach? How those two words, when or how those two words collide? Agile can help your team to measure. Why is that important? Because without measure, there's no improvement. Agile can help your team to improve because it can help you to measure. What else? Agile can help your team to be consistent with frequent reassessments. We need consistency because remember that real expertise can only be proven when the performance is consistently superior. That's how Agile can help your team. And this is a quote. I want to close with this quote that says that if you cannot improve, you cannot achieve performing peak. And that's a quote from Stephen Lucas, aka myself, a working from home father of two little boys. So I made my own Kelvin quote. Give me some credit here, and I hope that you could learn or got some insights about high performing teams and Agile today with me. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Lucas. So we have some 5 minutes left. So does anybody want to ask a question or share some thoughts here with us? Please, Carlos.
I do have a question about this functioning teams. This is just out of curiosity. Do you know where is the amongst area of dysfunctional between those five? What's the most common popular
I,
dysfunctional between those five?
I don't know, to be very honest with you. I have no idea. Does anybody know the call? What it would be? I'll look for that. It's a good
Yeah,
question. Thank you.
yeah. Just out of curiosity, because I heard about these functional teams, but this is the first time I heard those pillars. So I was way curiosity where most dysfunctional teams are. But that the way you presented and putting as a as a a mistake on purpose, that was a great catch. So great presentation.
Thank you.
Do you use any tool or something to measure these, or it's kind of feeling?
Well, my team specifically uses a very specific measure, not tool, methodology to make sure that we are performing well. We have points for each card. So we use the points just to track how many points our team can deliver in a sprint. But we also try to observe what is the goal of each of those cards that have been moved to complete. So think about it like this. Imagine that developer A delivered, I don't know, 4 cards, which meant 13 points. But from the 4 cards, 3 were bug fixes that were generated in the previous sprint. So it doesn't actually mean a good thing. So we need to put everything on the board and make sure that those points are actually related to concrete results and not only cards being moved, not only a sum up of points, but as I mentioned in the beginning, high-performing teams deliver concrete results. Generating bugs and fixing bugs, it's not really concrete results. So that's how we measure.
Thank you.